Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awake in the World. We are live right now, and that is 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you're here on this particular planet. Turning course. It is the 4th of March, 2021. So nice to see you all. Sorry for the pating in the background. That's the tablet. So, as always, let me express my pure love for each and every one of you. You are exactly where you need to be, and you are exactly who you need to be in your perception right now. And believe it or not, you are always held in the arms of love. This is the truth. So I'm hoping our video is going to go okay. It looks like I have a good quality stream. I can't see anything for comments. It says I've been live for 15 minutes, which is a crock. But, there's not much more I can do with it, really. Sorry. So as long as it is functional, though, let's have this little discussion. We're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about habits or hobbits or hobbit houses. Every time I say habit, I think of Hobbit because I grew up with Tolkien in book form. And, the Silmarillion was just an amazing book. And then of course, The Hobbit. And I fell in love with those books in so many ways. As a matter of fact, a master's thesis I did was on John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. And I'm way off course on this, I know. So it's just been one of those days, I shaved my face, I shaved my head. There's nothing holding back all the superpowers right now. I was going to say that I actually changed my sweater, but it wasn't really me. It crawled off of me when I was napping on the couch and headed for the laundry bin all by itself. So there is a new sweater, and this one I had to pick up and put on. It was obviously clean. So we're going to talk about habits tonight, and we're going to talk about how difficult it can be to turn course and what's some of the blockades that we build that cause these sort of problems? And Han, I'm just going to ask you to click on the messenger for that person who just messaged us and then close that tab so it stops flashing in my screen here. So Kelly's going to look after that. So as I had posted earlier, I posted a list of, habits that you can create to deal with habits. And what a habit really is in terms of the brain's physiology is you've created a very low resistance neural link between the triggers that you've developed for your habit and the habit itself, the craving for whatever it is, whether it's chocolate, it doesn't really matter what the habit is. But that's what happens. And you can think of it as a path in the woods. Your brain is filled with an almost unlimited number of pathways, and it has the ability to build new pathways. But when you're walking around in the jungle or in the woods and you see a pathway that's well stamped and stomped on and there's no brush in the way and you can clearly see where you're going versus a wooded over and dense trail that you can barely see through the trees and it looks dark in there too, your brain is automatically going to default to that easier path through the woods. In other words, you're going to repeat your habitual response to whatever the triggers are. Now, habits don't take very long to form. Realistically, they form pretty well within 30 days, and within 6 months, they become totally unconscious. In other words, the intelligence of the body has taken over subconsciously. It's not really the intelligence of the body. I'm going to correct myself. Your subconsciousness has taken over the habit, and it doesn't lie in the conscious mind so much anymore, if at all. Now, here's what comes next. So, we identify through whatever form of the baseball bat that we received, that lovely knock on life by Shiva the Destroyer, lovingly breaking down those things we need broken down so we have that opportunity to evolve, to see ourselves more clearly. So we have these habits, and for the first time in whatever the situation, we see the habit. And typically what happens is we become disgusted with ourselves or upset with ourselves in some way, or begin to beat up on ourselves. The thing to remember here is that the mind itself, the egoic sense of self, is particularly designed for repetition. That this isn't so much a fault deal. As a matter of fact, there is no fault in it. And yes, the ultimate responsibility is yours, but you have to understand that it's very easy. The mind is very plastic, which means moldable. Now, that is also to your advantage, because you can begin to create new habits to address the triggers or address the habits themselves. And the most important of those habits is the willing to self-forgive. As I said in the post that kind of went along with this video, you chose to come here. You agreed to it. You planned it out. You're here until the day you leave, and the day you leave, it will be perfect. And there is nothing you can do wrong. There is no need to hold yourself as not deserving forgiveness from yourself. Does a parent never forgive the child who, in their youthful innocence at the age of 2 years old, breaks grandma's lamp and grandma's long dead? That would be foolish. You have to be willing to do this for yourself too. You have to be willing to forgive yourself. It is also really important to understand that the habit that's been created is all around resistance. It's all around not facing those things that you would consider triggers. And one of the most common, and please forgive me because excuse is not the proper word. But one of the common reasons that we tend to keep going back over and over and over again to the same sort of behavior is because we've beaten ourselves down so low, so hard, that we feel that that's all we deserve, because we don't actually feel good doing the habit. We feel guilty. We feel like we're doing something wrong. Even Kelly will try to eat her chocolate when I'm not around. And she only eats one little piece, maybe 2 little pieces every odd day, once in a blue moon. But it's been so ingrained in her. And she keeps telling me it's because she used to have to hide it from everyone when she was with the last person in her life in her family. And she would only have to have it when there was nobody around. So, even that itself is a habitual response to what was going on. So, when we decide ultimately that we want to turn course, and it should never be because we are going to beat ourselves up over this habit, but more a recognition that the habit is not serving us. We need to replace that habit. And that's the only way to assuredly change course as quickly as possible. And as quickly as possible is going to take about 30 days for it to become a habituated response, and then roughly 6 months for it to become totally subconscious, where you just go about it without even thinking about it, as so many of our habits have already become. So when you recognize those habits, and this applies to any habit, it could be regarding habitual thinking, where you find yourself always responding negatively. Like, believe it or not, Kelly, to some degree, still is. But when I met her, she was very much a habitually negative thinker. If there was a chance things could go wrong, or there was something that could go wrong, that's where her mind would go first. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and yet we would blame ourselves and take it on. So let's take an example, first and foremost, of a habitual thought process in our own minds, where habitually we feel we're not good enough. And that is triggered by anytime we look in the mirror, anytime we engage in the particular habit attached to looking in the mirror, let's say food in the fridge or in the cupboard. And we habitually go about this all with the idea that somehow we're simply not enough or good enough. Now, again, this is just an example to show you how we need to replace one habit with another. So recognizing you're in the act of about to reach into that cupboard for a chocolate bar, or into the fridge or freezer for ice cream, or whatever that thing or habit may be that's somehow going to make you feel better but never truly does, there's a moment there. And that moment is given to you by that momentary awareness of the present moment, that you're about to engage in a habitual action. And then you have the opportunity to replace the habit. You can start with something as simple as, instead of reaching for a cookie or a chocolate or some ice cream, reach for some kale chips. And then go ahead and kill yourself after you've eaten them, because you might as well be dead. No, really, there's lots of good kale chips out there, but you get the point. You can pick a habit to replace the habit, and that is one of the clearest and easiest ways to turn course. And you actually fool your mind relatively quickly, because the mind is very plastic. Now, of course, in high stress or high trigger situations where there's a lot of stress involved, and perhaps you can escape the trigger so easily, or don't have the presence of mind, this is where those ideas I gave you of habits to develop to do daily come into effect. Starting the day with gratitude as the attitude. Waking up, and I do this every morning, because I wake up way before Kelly does, and I'm very much attached to the sun and the presence of light and dark. So even with the curtains, and we have thick thermal curtains that black everything out, my body still knows when there's light in the sky, when it's beginning to lighten, and I awaken. And the first thing I do is have a 10-minute gratitude fiesta with myself. I woke up this morning. I opened my eyes and my heart still beats. I still breathe. I can see. I'm in a warm bed beside another warm body, not a cold body. I have a roof over my head. There's hot water in the bathroom. There's a flush toilet. There's food downstairs. There's a furry animal laying up against my leg purring. The list goes on and on and on. I still possess my faculties. I haven't even gotten out of bed yet. So you create this habit with yourself, and what that does is that habit that you're going to do consciously begins to impinge on your subconsciousness, and it begins to actually get in there and begin to slowly clean away the habits and the triggers to those habits. And the reason it does so, especially starting with gratitude, is that you are subconsciously ingraining within yourself that you are abundant and that everything is perfectly wonderful and that you are joyful for what is right there with you right now. This becomes a positive vibration within your being that sets the tone for your entire day and will certainly, I promise you, help you with any of those habits, help you with turning course when it's difficult to do so. So we move on to one of the equally as important as the first habit, okay? Gratitude, and well, actually the third, because we talked about forgiving yourself always. The third one is simply wonderful, and it is loving yourself, consciously loving yourself. Now, what does it mean to consciously love yourself? For me, it means putting on some of my Enigma music, drawing a bath, maybe burning some incense or some scented candles or some candles, dimming the lights in the bathroom, getting into a hot tub filled with Epsom salts and essential oils and a little bit of sweet almond oil, and just allowing my body to melt away and allow the music to carry me away as well. You know, to sit there in the near darkness and just lose yourself. And to me, that is intensely loving myself. Whenever I go downstairs to exercise, I consciously say to myself, you know, even if the mind is saying, you know, I really don't want to do this right now. And of course, I'm saying, you know what, I love you. We're going to do this anyways. And I engage in that from a loving point of view. This also applies to the thoughts in your head. If the thoughts you're having are not loving you, you've got to learn to change those thoughts. And the first thing to do is to actually catch yourself and you know what? Verbalize it. I do it. I don't do it anymore because I'm long past that. But back in the day, I used to verbalize it in the middle of an elevator filled with people. Nope, that's not right. I would say to myself out loud over a thought that I caught, a thought that wasn't loving myself. And the reason you know that they don't love yourself when you have thoughts like that is because they don't feel good. You feel yucky in the act of thinking them and following that thought process. Love yourself enough to say, no, I'm not right in this. My own body's higher intelligence, far smarter than I am, is telling me I'm full of crap right now. What am I thinking that's got me off course? And you can catch that. And then you can pick the first thing that is in alignment with the truth of who you are to think instead and start ingraining that response. The journey is only 30 days. It seems like a lifetime. But it only takes 30 days. And I don't suggest you address all your habits at once. Start to create new habits and then work with one habit at a time. We talked about exercise as part of loving yourself. We talked about dealing with your thoughts, about not being willing to entertain thoughts that do not feel good. And this is a continuation of this, but very important. And that is a total willingness to accept others just as they are. The best way to get rid of every anything that you perceive as a negative habit in your life is to simply accept people as they are. To not believe there's anything that needs to be fixed. To understand that their journey is perfect. And if they wish for help in their journey, they will ask for it, or you will be made aware of it. But you don't have to go and hunt them down to try and fix them. This is an age-old habit, and the reason a lot of people do it is, of course, while they're busy trying to fix someone else, they don't have to deal with fixing themselves. All of these good habits you can develop, and as I said, gratitude is the most important one. The last one we're going to discuss, one of the most helpful ones, is to develop the habit of doing an evening recapitulation with yourself, followed by a literal brushing off of any leftover negative vibrations, to say to yourself before, and I don't hold anything like that anymore, but I used to do this. I used to stand by the side of the bed or in the mirror in the bathroom right before bed, and I would say out loud as I looked at myself, I let go of and release any negative thoughts that I hold, consciously or subconsciously, about myself or others. I let go of that. Why? Because I love myself. And I accept everyone as they are right now. Because I live in a world of God's perfection, where everything that is occurring with purpose and offering an immense gift within it. Develop these habits, and you won't have to really combat the habits you want to get rid of. They'll begin to fade away all by themselves. That's it. That's all. Much love to you this evening. I hope this has been a helpful video. We're getting our underwater page on the go on the underwater YouTube channel. The underwater drone is due here tomorrow. I can't say I'm not excited, because I am excited, although I'm not attached. If it doesn't show up until Monday, that's perfectly fine. And we look forward to expanding the awakening experience and involving nature, and bringing nature into it. And I'm really looking forward to it. But what I'm looking forward to even more than that is having the opportunity to see you again, which we will very soon. Namaste. Again, all my love. Peace be upon you. Good night.